In the summer days of 1941, the Third Reich tore through the Soviet Union with very little resistance, as Stalin had foolishly gotten rid of all of his competent officers in the Great Purge. But as the Germans continued, it got harder and harder as the Soviets retreated and got together. This all culminated on August 23rd, 1942, when the Battle of Stalingrad kicked off, and for 4 months of brutal fighting, the Germans and Soviets were neck and neck as the Soviets desperately fought to defend the city in Stalin's name. But eventually, the Germans slip up and they're forced to surrender. And at that point, the writing's on the wall. The Soviets in the east and the British and the Americans in the west crushed the Germans with the foot of the Allies. Now, the reason I tell you this is because when Hitler did Operation Barbarossa in 1941, he thought that what he was doing was just. He was protecting the German people, the Aryan race, from the Slavic menace. He was stopping Stalin and those dirty communists. And you see Stalin, while looking at this, he said, alright guys, come on. This guy's an idiot. Let's go and beat him up. And he got his friends together and did the entire Soviet Union. Nobody really liked him, but whatever. And they went, and they socked the Germans in the mouth, and they just walked into Berlin, and there was nothing they could have done about it, and he showed that the Soviets would last. So, now the reason I bring this up is because these two people, these two absolute tyrants, had the exact same event fold out before them, and they both came to very differing conclusions. See, one of them thought that they were doing the right thing by invading a very large country, and the other one thought that they were doing a very valiant thing, a very great moral good for humanity by invading another really large country. Now, how is this possible? I think it's actually perfectly possible, if you ask me, for these two people to have radically differing ideas on what justice is, if you accept that justice is not objective. It's not even close to objective. The entire concept is based on non-objectivity. For example, if I were to kill somebody, with a sling, of course, I'd load the stone, boop, 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 hit him in the head, right? Falls dead. Everyone's like, what was that all about? Get out of here! Scram! Get out of here! I look at them and I'm like, yeah, that guy killed my dad. And all of a sudden, it's not so black and white, is it? Thus, it's a subjective point. Now I'd like to draw your attention to our rules of laws. The United States, for example, but it's really all civilized countries. The laws that govern us. No killing, no embezzling, no thievery, all those laws, they're great, right? We've all come to a consensus as a community that, yes, these are the standards, we will follow them. So is that justice? Is it? Is it really justice? Because there's always something you can come up with to justify doing that. Like, oh man, I was starving to death and I just had to steal that orange from that dude. But I did it to feed my family and all that. Yeah, like, okay, yeah, in that case, it's probably a just thing to do it. Especially if the guy was like a rich, arrogant, terrible person, right? So when you look at it that way, it's never solid. Yet that guy could be charged and he could be sentenced to whatever, like a year in prison. Probably not that for stealing an orange, but yeah, he'd go to prison for a year, let's say. That's not just though, because he had a perfectly reasonable reason to do it. And that's because he was like starving and he had to do it to save himself, alright? And that's where the subjective part of this comes in. Who knows? On the side of the law, he's definitely a criminal, but in the side of morality, he's the good guy. He did what he had to do. And when you take this small issue, this really personal issue about what justice is, and you blow it out to the huge lens of society, it becomes a little bit more confusing, but there still is a general answer in my opinion. That's justice for a society is what the majority of people think is right. Now, for an example, the majority of people do not think it's okay to just kill people, go outside to your neighbor, kill him. But they think it's fine to drive cars. Like, well, what's that all about? You're driving these things at like 60 miles an hour. They're just hunks of metal going through. We're humans. We're not perfect. Somebody walks out on the street, done. They're absolutely done. Somebody who has a messed up mind decides to drive into like a gas station or something, bam. Well, what are we gonna do about it? We just let these people drive them around. They barely have to get a license for it. Like, what is this? Come on. Now, obviously, you can justify this by saying, well, how the heck else are we supposed to get places? It's built our society around cars and oil. But, alright, let's imagine for a second that there was a different world, where absolutely, it was just, you did not drive cars, it was terrible. But killing was perfectly fine, like if somebody pissed you off, bang, dead. And now if you ask this question to them, hey, well, why are cars illegal and why is killing okay? I'd imagine they'd give an answer like this. You know, killing that guy, he annoyed me. He didn't have to do that. He obviously knew it was gonna annoy me, so bang, he's dead. He's not a part of my life anymore. And cars, again, horribly dangerous. You know how many accidents in cars there are a year? Like, I cannot believe anyone would think that it's okay to drive a car. Now, actually, obviously, this is, like, exaggerated for hyperbole's sake, and so I can get the idea across that justice is subjective, okay? This is why we have juries. So to wrap things up, we always need to see both sides of the coin before we flip it.